Growing up, I did not get the typical birds and the bees conversation from my parents. And I actually had a very different upbringing because my grandmother raised me. And I did have my parents in my life. However, they were divorced. But my family was very homophobic and religious. And they actually knew that I was different. I wasn't the typical heterosexual girl in the neighborhood. And a lot of the young girls already knew about the birds and the bees. And they always were playing and thinking about walking down the aisle with their future husbands and having 2 children. And I did not have those type of thoughts or fantasies. I actually had to learn the hard way about sexuality. I would describe myself as being a self-taught lesbian when it comes to sexuality and learning about the body. As a woman who loves women, I was very interested in becoming acquainted with the female anatomy. Of course, I knew my own body, but you can only go so far with yourself. I wanted a partner, someone who was into me and I was into her. Pun intended. Well, you see my title of my video, Lesbian Female Anatomy, Our Bodies Fit Perfectly. My name is Giselle Wallace, lesbian life coach and author. I do provide content on my YouTube channel from my lesbian perspective. And of course, the content that I provide is to educate, inspire lesbian, gay, bisexual, and LGBTQ plus people. If this interests you, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will say that most people who are same-sex attracted grew up without having that close connection with someone who they could trust and confide in to discuss your regular everyday feelings that you experience as you're growing up in this world about attraction, specifically same-sex attraction, hormones, emotions, and just romantic and sexual feelings for the same sex. The reason why most of us have not experienced it is because we live in a world that's dominated by heterosexual concepts as well as models that represent male and female relationship dynamics. And the majority of us have parents who identify as heterosexual. And we experience life a lot differently from heterosexual people. There takes a little bit of more time for us to adjust to relationships that are romantic or sexual, because we often were not allowed to express ourselves freely and openly as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or same-sex attracted people. And for me, I didn't have any shame about being a lesbian. I did not have any shame about being attracted to the same sex. As a matter of fact, I was very free in who I was, but I had a very restricted upbringing where I was deterred from being my authentic self. So I could not really express myself because it was not accepted being a lesbian girl. And I actually am someone who loves to learn and explore. And I actually got to a point where I made sure that all of my questions would be answered and that I was able to experience full satisfaction as a lesbian. And this includes me being myself, but it also entails me going out, meeting women, getting to know women, and it just pretty much solidified what I innately already knew about myself, that negated everything that I had ever been taught by people in my family, people in the church environment, and just this heteronormative society that we live in, just the constant messages that we hear, whether that's through TV, radio, the internet, social media, the news, wherever you get information from, it helps you to understand how the world sees you as well as how the world treats you. And being a same-sex attracted person, we often get silenced, overlooked, ignored, discriminated against. And we're not actually given the opportunities that heterosexual people have when it comes to their experiences in dating, relationships, and marriage. Because being heterosexual, everything is just catered for you. And everybody's excited to learn about how your love life is going. But me growing up and me maturing into a young lady, I did not have that type of welcome. But thankfully, I wasn't discouraged from exploring my life and getting to know women how I wanted to get to know them. And I not too long ago, I was online, and it was a forum. It was a forum, and the topic actually was about lesbian couples. And before I go into this discussion about this lesbian forum, I want to say that I actually created my own academy, and it's called Giselle Wallace Lesbian Academy. And you can actually enroll in my academy. The link is here in the description box on YouTube, and I'll also will try to remember to put it in the comment section. But the reason, partly the reason why I created Giselle Wallace Lesbian Academy is so that I can provide classes and courses and lessons where I can freely discuss information that we as lesbians, gay, bisexual, and LGBTQ people will be able to learn from and to receive confirmation about ourselves, because I am not able to provide all of the information that I can here on YouTube, because there are certain restrictions or censorships that will not allow me to discuss all of the information that I want to hear. However, I will present content that is helpful and beneficial. But if you would like information that is for a mature audience, because I will be very direct and very raw with my information through my own academy, which is called Giselle Wallace Lesbian Academy. It doesn't matter your gender, you are invited to come. And it doesn't matter your sexual orientation, you're invited to come to enroll. It is, of course, a academy where you do have to, there is a paywall, and that paywall is very important, because people who are serious about getting information and learning and growing and being a part of a community, they will invest in themselves. I am a student, a learner, and I know what it's like to pay for my education. And when I pay for my education, I actually process the information and I apply it in my life. And so you will take your learning more seriously when you invest in yourself. But I encourage you to enroll in Giselle Wallace Lesbian Academy. I will be uploading courses continuously, and some of these courses are going to be very mature content that I'm not able to provide here on YouTube. So thank you for enrolling, those who have already enrolled. I appreciate your presence as learners, and I look forward to all of the future learners at Giselle Wallace Lesbian Academy. And to just continue on about the forum I was on, it was an online forum, and it was a topic about lesbian couples. And something that happens quite often that is kind of very annoying and as well as disrespectful is when there are people who identify as heterosexual who intrude lesbian, gay, bisexual, and LGBTQ spaces online. And sometimes you have to create private forums and things of that nature to actually kind of prevent people who are there to troll and cause issues from invading such spaces. But this is actually what happened on this particular online forum, and it was discussing lesbian couples relationships, and there were some heterosexual people there. Now, of course, if you're heterosexual, that's fine if you want to listen to content by lesbian, gay, bisexual, and LGBTQ people. That's not a problem. The problem is when you actually invade our spaces and you feel entitled to control and tell us how we should live our lives. So you pretty much try to dictate how we should conduct ourselves when we are adults and we know how to live our lives. We've been living our lives just fine without you. But what was happening is, in this particular forum, when it was talking about lesbian couples, there were some heterosexual men and women there, and they were not supportive. They actually were very antagonistic. And here we are minding our own business, having our own discussion in this online forum. Now, it wasn't a private forum. And as I mentioned, sometimes you have to create private forums or have paywalls in order to basically vet and protect your spaces online from intruders. So these people who identified as heterosexual, they would make very judgmental and ignorant, callous statements and comments about our same-sex attracted relationships. And in this specific topic or form, it was about lesbian couples. So I remember there was this straight woman, and she kept on saying, quote, "You need a lock and key in order for it to work," end quote. And basically, she was saying that it doesn't make sense to be a lesbian because two locks don't fit together. You need a lock and a key. And of course, I'm going to be pretty much PG-13 here, right here, because I don't want any issues with which will prevent you as the listeners and as my subscribers from hearing this video. So I'll keep it PG-13. But she was basically describing the female anatomy as being locks, and she was describing the male anatomy as being the key. And so she kept on, and she was repeatedly just kind of, just trolling and just spamming the content, the different discussion forums. And, it wasn't just her. It was also heterosexual males doing the same thing. But she just kept on saying it doesn't make sense for two locks to be together because you don't fit. You need a lock and a key. And why would you want another lock as a female? There's nothing better than a key to fit in your lock. And I just, want to say this, that when I was growing up, I did not have the typical birds and the bees conversation. And it wasn't because I was not interested in learning about the birds and the bees. However, I knew early on I was a very smart, intuitive child, very observant and aware of my surroundings. I was in a very homophobic religious upbringing. So I understood early on that I was not going to be treated like a heterosexual teenager would be treated. As a matter of fact, I was completely dismissed from having conversations about my feelings and my experiences as a young lesbian teenager. Because usually you'll start having the birds and the bees conversation. It just depends on the parent and their relationship with their child. But I would say with young girls, because of the way young girls mature a lot sooner than boys with their reproductive system, I really think that you have to start having conversations about a woman's female anatomy, her reproductive system, as well as learning about sexuality. I believe that you can learn, let's say, by the age of 10 years old. And this is just for females, because we know that the young girl's body matures a lot quicker than the male's. So she can experience having her actual menstruation cycle very young. I think one of the earliest ages that a girl experiences her menstruation cycle is probably 8 years of age. More commonly, you may experience it at the age of 12, but this is still very young. So let's just say preteen into teenage years, generally you're going to have this conversation with your parents about your body. And of course, learning about your body and learning about the reality that people are sexual creatures and they come together and they mate and they are involved romantically, intimately, and they may get married, they may have children. So everybody needs to have those conversations because it's human life. It's our life. It's part of life. However, I didn't have those experiences. And the reason why I didn't have those experiences because my family knew very early on that I was a lesbian. And because of this, they did not approve, and they did not regard my feelings, my emotions, my experiences. They just overlooked it, or they were very trying to find the word to describe it, dismissive about my experiences, which is not good. And I was self-taught. I learned on my own. And I'm just glad I didn't let how I was treated by family to discourage me from wanting to be myself and learn more about myself. It was not easy. And when I hear people say things like, two women being together intimately, it's not the real thing. And it's not going to fulfill you unless you are with a man. And you hear this all the time. And a lot of this it comes from this heteronormative patriarchal society that we are born into. And women have been brainwashed to believe that they are not supposed to enjoy intimacy with another person because women are to be chaste. Women are supposed to be virgins. Women are supposed to only have one partner for the entire existence of their time on earth. And it has to be a husband, a man. And so when you've been trained this way from birth to a young girl to a teenager on into adulthood, a lot of women do not really know themselves. And then, of course, there's women who always go out and figure it out on their own. And then you end up with what they call as teenage pregnancy. And then they want to chastise the teenage girl, or just even women who are even adults, like they could be in their early 20s, and they get ridiculed by primarily men because they're now single mothers or they became pregnant out of wedlock. So these are things that you see, but nobody addresses the underlying issues because nobody's talking about the fact that we are people who are going to be attracted to someone. And in this regard, me being a lesbian, I am attracted to women. So if you can just imagine how difficult it is for just a heterosexual woman when it comes to her sexuality and how she carries and conducts herself as a woman, she has to really put on these airs, these public airs, to appear like a saint almost, in order to qualify to be a wife to this husband. And it's just all about pleasing men. So you see that, growing up as a lesbian, and I know that that's not the life I wanted. But I also knew that a lot of these heterosexual women were not necessarily happy because they were pretty much doing what they were told to do. So if it was difficult for them, imagine how much more difficult it is for me as a woman who identifies as lesbian. I had to figure things out on my own. And it took a long time. It took years. It took a lot of mistakes because nobody told me what to do. I didn't know. I didn't have any lesbian female friends. I knew that I couldn't go to my parents or my grandmother because I knew they wouldn't help me. If anything, I didn't want to go to them because they didn't make me feel safe and comfortable to come to them. And it's really terrible. It's really a disservice to children who have to experience that type of neglect from their own family. Because your family is supposed to be the one to support you and to protect you and to educate you. Because people in the world, they don't care. But when you have people in the world who don't care and people in your own family who don't care enough to consider, all right, I know that you're not heterosexual like me, but I still want you to know that I care for you and that I want you to know that you can feel safe if you need to talk to me. It's very simple, but people make things so hard and difficult and complicated because they just want to antagonize you. They just want to have something to be mad about. But I learned on my own through trial and error. And I discuss actually on my YouTube channel how actually I learned vicariously through watching lesbian adult films. It was very educational to me. And as I explained to you about what it was like for me growing up, I didn't have the privilege like a heterosexual young woman would to talk about what I was going through as a young lady. And when a heterosexual person judges me for being a lesbian, or anyone, whether it's a heterosexual male or female or whoever it is, when they judge me and say, oh, you know, you're a sinner for being a lesbian and you should not be watching lesbian porn. Not that I had that discussion with any of these people. I pretty much let people know my experiences because I am a professional life coach and I'm an author. And you may come across content of mine where I tell you about my experiences. But these people that hear about it or listen to it, they want to attack me and want to call me an abomination and tell me that I'm confused and I've been hurt and that I just need a man to turn me around. And they say these things and then they wonder why there's people in the world who are walking around and you really don't know these people. And the reason why you don't know them is because they've already picked up that you're the kind of person who's going to criticize them. You're going to berate them. You're going to insult them. So why even waste your time showing them who you really are? Because all you're going to do is give them what they want. And people will accept this mask that people put on. They'll accept the mask. They'll accept the false image that makes them happy that people are lying to them. But when people are truthful about who they are and they're upfront, people want to call you everything but a child of God. So I learned that a lot of people who are very critical and bigoted, these people usually have the most problems. And they're not self-aware. And I knew early on, and as I matured and learned more about myself, I said, I can't learn from these people. It makes sense why I didn't get any information from them from the beginning, because they're not the kind of people who know enough about their own selves. So how can they teach me anything? So it always just is so really asinine for people to come in my comment section, whether it's on here on my YouTube channel or somewhere on my social media or wherever, and they judge me for who I am. But I'll just say that I've learned so much about myself, and I'm glad that I didn't rely on what other people thought about me, because everything that they thought about me was wrong. And how could they really know who I am when they're not me? And they're not even a same-sex attracted person. But they would only tell me that, oh, the parts don't fit. You'll never find satisfaction with a woman. You need the key. 2 locks, they don't fit. But I know what I've experienced, and I can definitely say that lesbian female anatomy, our bodies fit perfectly. And if you really knew and understood the design of the female body, then you would understand that when lesbians come together, when our bodies join together, we can receive immense pleasure and give immense pleasure to one another, because we fit physiologically, but we also fit psychologically as well as spiritually. Thank you for listening. My name is Giselle Wallace, lesbian life coach and author. If you would like a one-on-one life coaching session, you can contact me. All of my information is here in the description box here on YouTube. And also, please join my academy, Giselle Wallace Lesbian Academy. The link is also in the description box here on YouTube. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.